Imagine you're a detective, right? And you are staring at a cold case file that has been sitting wide open on your desk for, oh, I don't know, about 1,400 years.
Yeah, that's quite the backlog.
Right. But you, the listener, you are looking at one of history's greatest textual mysteries today. We're talking about the disconnected Arabic letters that just, sit at the very beginning of several chapters of the Quran.
Specifically for this deep dive, we're focusing on 3 letters. Alif, Lam, Mim.
Exactly. Alif-Lam-Mim. And for centuries, across countless volumes of commentary, these letters have basically been viewed as this purely abstract mystery, an unsolvable enigma.
A total black box.
Yeah, exactly. Some scholars say only God knows their meaning, which, is fair. Others argue they're entirely mystical symbols. But, and this is the big question, what if we've been looking at the evidence all wrong?
Which is exactly what we're digging into today. Because what if it's not a mystical puzzle at all?
Right. Today, you and I are taking a deep dive into J.R. Ahmed's really fascinating book, The Algebra of Revelation. And we are zeroing in entirely on his chapter analyzing Alif, Lam, Mim.
And this is where we basically have to completely reframe the nature of the mystery. Because Ahmed argues that these letters are not some cryptic riddle meant to, confuse the reader.
Okay, then what are they?
They are, in fact, a system header.
A system header, like in computer science.
Exactly like that. If you think about high-level information theory, right? A header identifies the protocol of a data packet before you even open the file. It tells the computer what it's looking at.
So wait, you're saying these letters act as a checksum for reality itself?
Yes, exactly. They are a metadata signature proving the integrity of the information that is about to follow.
Okay, I have to play devil's advocate right out of the gate here.
Go for it.
We're moving from 7th century theology into, modern systems engineering. Aren't we just projecting Silicon Valley text jargon onto an ancient desert text? I mean, how do we know this isn't just major confirmation bias?
It's a completely fair question.
Yeah.
It really is. But Ahmed isn't claiming the original audience was sitting around thinking in terms of fiber optics, right?
Right. Obviously not.
He's arguing that the Arabic linguistic roots used in the text are just so mathematically precise that modern information theory is simply the best translation tool we have today to actually understand their mechanics.
Okay, so it's a framework to understand the existing precision.
Exactly. Think of it as a high-speed data packet. He breaks down the overarching analogy kind of like this. The first letter, Aleph, represents the server.
The server.
Right. It is the source, the originator, the primary hardware, basically. Yeah. Then the second letter, Lam, is the cable.
Like the physical connection.
Yeah, it represents the transmission.
Yeah.
The secure, completely uncorrupted link directly from that server. And finally, the third letter, Mim, is the high-definition image that actually appears on your screen.
Oh, wow.
It is the manifestation, the tangible physical reality. So Aleph, Lam, Mim, source, transmission, manifestation.
Okay, so the text is basically explicitly telling the reader, here is the source, here is the secure link, and here is the physical output you are going to see.
That's the argument, yeah.
If that's true, what does this all actually mean for us today? Because our mission in this deep dive is to take you from the mystery of these ancient letters to the absolute certainty of what Ahmed calls the algebra of revelation.
Right, we're mapping out how this universal protocol, source, transmission, manifestation, how it governs literally everything.
Yeah, and we are talking about the laws of economics, the rise and fall of historical empires, and even the very biology of your own body.
It's massively ambitious. But what really stands out in the book is how it proves this by anchoring that header to specific empirical data within the chapters or surahs where these letters actually appear.
Because you can't just have a header without a file attached to it.
Precisely. If Aleph, Lam, Mim is the blueprint, we can't just talk in the abstract forever. We need to look at what the constructed building actually looks like in reality.
And that takes us directly into Surah Al-Baqarah, the 2nd chapter of the Quran.
Which act as the foundational engine room of this entire system.
Right, because an operating system is completely useless if it just stays as abstract code on a whiteboard somewhere. It has to actually run the hardware.
Yeah, it has to execute.
So in Al-Baqarah, Ahmed points out that the text immediately pulls the reader to the alif, the source. It identifies the originator of the physical hardware.
Describing the earth as a bed, the sky as a ceiling, right?
Exactly. It establishes that before we can have any societal laws or ethics, we have to acknowledge who built the server room in the first place.
Because without acknowledging the Aleph, the subsequent laws have no foundational anchor. They're just, arbitrary human rules that can change whenever.
Yeah, they'd just be suggestions.
But once that hardware is established, we move to the LAM, the transmission. How does the data actually get from the originator to us humans?
Right. What's the receiver?
The text specifies that the channel leads directly to the human core processor. And in Arabic, the word used for this is qalb.
Now, hold on. Kalb is usually translated just as heart, right? Like, we usually think of the heart as an emotional center, not a processor.
Traditionally, yes, people think of it as just emotion. But systemically, if you look at its linguistic root, qalb means to turn, to process, to invert.
Oh, interesting.
It does not just mean a fleshy pump or a hub for your feelings. It functions as the central cognitive unit where data is evaluated, turned over, and synthesized.
So the LAM protocol ensures that the data stream from the source is sent directly to this human core processor with zero signal noise.
Exactly. It's a verified handshake between the divine and the human.
Okay, let's make sure we don't lose the listener in the weeds here, because this gets dense. Once that verified handshake happens, we get the MIM, the manifestation.
The output.
Right. This is where the abstract laws materialize into heavy, concrete reality. And there is a specific detail in the book regarding this that I found really, really compelling.
Oh, the verse about the debt.
Yes. So Surah Al-Baqarah contains verse 222. It is the longest verse in the entire Quran. And, you might expect the longest verse to be about angels or the majesty of the afterlife or something.
But it isn't.
No, it's a highly technical, super detailed breakdown of how to write down a debt contract between two people.
It is the ultimate execution of the MIM protocol.
Yeah.
The abstract philosophical concept of justice becomes a physical, witnessable economic reality.
It's like a 3D printer. You aren't just downloading a philosophy PDF to read and, feel enlightened about on your couch.
No, not at all.
The LAM is sending executable code to a 3D printer, and the MIM is the printer physically stamping out the laws of economics and social contracts right before your eyes, in the real world.
Exactly. You can touch it, you can call witnesses to verify it. It proves systemically that the Alif-Lam-Mim protocol takes the creator's blueprint and makes it a fully operational reality in society.
Okay, so we've established how it builds the hardware in society in the present. But, what good is a system if it crashes the moment the environment changes?
Right. Time is the ultimate stress test.
Exactly. A local network is easy to run for a day. But systems degrade over time, software gets corrupted, files get lost. How do we know this isn't just a localized, temporary software patch for one specific group of people in the desert 1,000 years ago?
Does this code actually survive centuries of human error?
Yeah, does it?
This is where Ahmed introduces the concept of the legacy audit.
Okay.
And this is found in the very next chapter, Surah Al-Imran. It's essentially a module that verifies the historical continuity of the transmission. It proves the rules of the game haven't changed.
So it's kind of like checking the version history on a software repository to make sure the core files aren't corrupted?
That's a really good way to put it. In this chapter, the Aleph, the source, is explicitly defined as Al-Hayy Al-Qayyum, which means the ever-living sustainer.
Meaning it doesn't die or break down?
Right. This proves the universe's primary hardware doesn't suffer from entropy or decay. The system administrator is an absolute constant.
Okay, so the Aleph is constant. What about the LAM?
The LAM, the transmission, explicitly verifies that it is the exact identical channel that delivered previous data sets. The text specifically names the Torah and the Gospel here.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's validating that it's the exact same unbroken signal path used throughout history.
Okay, let me make sure I'm getting this and that you at home are following along. The user interface might change depending on the language or, the specific historical era the humans are living in.
Sure.
Like, obviously, the daily laws of Moses looked a bit different from the laws of Jesus. But this handshake guarantees the underlying signal integrity is exactly the same as it was thousands of years ago.
Exactly. It is a total synchronization of reality across time. And because the source is constant and the transmission is identical, the MIM, the manifestation in this chapter, is what the text calls the Muqaṭṭaʿāt.
The Muqaṭṭaʿāt, meaning?
The precise verses. They act as the core kernel of the book.
Why do we need a core kernel, though? If the signal is pure, shouldn't everything just be perfectly clear?
Because human history is noisy. Human interpretations, biases, politics, they all create ambiguity over time. The Muqaṭṭaʿāt are a stabilized output that provides the absolute criteria for decision-making.
Ah, I see.
They basically cut through the noise, ensuring the legacy code isn't overwritten by human error or misunderstanding.
Okay, so historical consistency on paper is great, especially when the server is sitting in a nice air-conditioned room, but a true system has to be stress-tested in the field.
Okay, absolutely.
What happens when this data packet hits real-world environmental pressure? Like, when human lives actually get messy and difficult and painful?
That brings us to Surah Al-Ankabut, chapter 29. Ahmed outlines this as the friction audit.
Friction audit, okay.
Right. We shift from looking at massive historical timelines to looking at the internal state of the individual human node, because just saying "I believe" is treated by the system as completely unverified data.
Yeah, the text literally says, do people think they will just be left to say, we believe, and they won't be tried? It practically demands proof.
And the specific word used for that trial, that transmission of stress, is fitna.
Fitna, I've heard that translated as like a trial or a tribulation.
Yeah, but linguistically, fitna is actually the thermodynamic process of smelting gold. It's the literal process of applying extreme heat to separate the pure element from the useless dross.
Wow. So psychological stress acts as thermodynamic friction.
Precisely. It is the friction required to test if the humans link their personal lamb to the source, the Aleph, actually holds under intense pressure. It burns off the fake claims.
Treating belief like metallurgy is just a completely different way to look at faith. I mean, it's like claiming a newly designed submarine can survive the Mariana Trench.
Right.
The blueprint, the Aleph, looks absolutely flawless on the engineer's desk, but the pressure test, the LAM, that thermodynamic friction that is the only way to prove the hull, which is the MIM, won't instantly crush when it hits the bottom of the ocean.
That's a perfect analogy.
Mm-hmm.
And if a human node connects to a false source, a fake Alif, and uses an unverified link, the resulting MIM, the manifestation, is what the chapter calls the spider's web.
Ahwan al-Bayut, right. The weakest of houses.
Exactly. Think about a spider's web.
Mm.
Geometrically, it looks incredibly complex and sturdy, but it completely disintegrates under the slightest real environmental stress.
A strong breeze just wrecks it.
Yeah. But if the node passes the friction test, if the link holds, the verified manifestation results in stable chambers of paradise, and, more immediately, an unshakable human character.
The spider's web versus the unyielding chambers, the hull crushes, or it holds.
Exactly.
So we've seen the code applied to building a society, we've seen it audit history, and we've seen it measure the internal friction of human psychology. But does a system this abstract actually scale?
What do you mean by scale?
Well, a truly unified theory needs to explain the massive and the microscopic. Right. Can it predict global geopolitical alliance? And conversely, does it apply to something as intimate as a father and son arguing in a living room?
It actually scales flawlessly across both of those dimensions. Ahmed demonstrates this by combining the geopolitical audit with the pedagogical audit.
Which are found where?
In Surahs Arum and Luqman. Let's look at the macro first. So the ANS 30, Arum. It opens with the Alif-Lam-Mim header and immediately makes a geopolitical forecast.
It predicts the defeat and the subsequent victory of the Roman Empire, right?
Yes, and it says this victory will happen specifically within 3 to 9 years.
See, that is a highly specific, time-bound variable. If the Romans don't win in that exact time frame, the system's credibility completely collapses.
Exactly. It's a falsifiable claim. Here, the Aleph holds the ultimate command. The text literally says the command belongs to the source before and after.
Okay.
The Lam represents the transmission of forces. The text talks about sending the winds that stir the clouds, acting as data carriers for physical change.
And the Mim?
Mim manifests as undeniable historical events, the victory of the Romans. It proves that history is not just a series of random, chaotic accidents. It is a verifiable science running on a master code.
Okay, that's the macro. And then we zoom all the way in, micro scale. Surah 31, Luqman.
Right.
The system moves from the turnover of global superpowers to the intergenerational transmission of wisdom between a father and a son.
And the text defines this wisdom not as some, mystical aura, but as a clean data transfer.
Okay, break that down for me.
The source, Alif, is the absolute truth. Luqman, the father, acts as the secure relay node. He is the lamb. He is transmitting uncorrupted data to his son, warning him against systemic fragmentation.
And what is the Mim in this scenario? How does this wisdom manifest physically in the son?
The text literally tells the son to walk at a moderate pace. and to lower his voice.
See, walk me through the mechanics of that connection, because on the surface, those seem completely unrelated to everything we've talked about. How does the exact same protocol dictating the collapse of the Roman Empire also tell you to lower your voice in a domestic argument?
It's because the system is fractal.
Fractal.
Yes, the pattern is absolutely identical at the scale of an empire and the scale of a single human footstep.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Raising your voice in anger or walking with an arrogant swagger is introducing entropy into the system. Arrogance acts like static on a line. It scrambles the data because the human ego gets in the way of the signal.
Oh, wow. So lowering the voice is the stabilization of the internal signal.
Exactly. It proves the node is correctly aligned with the source.
That is fascinating. So if this code governs the winds, the rise of empires, thermodynamics, and personal ethics, where does the physical human body actually fit into this matrix?
This is what Ahmed calls the final verification audit, and it's found in Surah 32, As-Sajdah.
Okay.
Here, the Aleph is identified as the Lord of the worlds, the sovereign administrator of all biological and cosmological systems.
The ultimate server.
Right. The Lam is the secure download of the code. But the biological mem is where the argument reaches its absolute peak.
The biological mem.
Yeah. The abstract intent of the source manifests biologically in the human system. The text explicitly traces this from raw hardware, clay, and fluid to the proportioning of the human, to the activation of the software.
Which is what?
Perfectly proportioned hearing, vision, and the cognitive processing center, the AFIDA.
Wait, so the mem isn't just a book or a historical event anymore. The mem is the listener's own biological capacity to hear and process information.
Exactly. You are the manifestation.
You are the mem.
You are the mem. And when the human processing center realizes this, the surah redefines the concept of sajda.
Which is usually translated as prostration, right? Putting your forehead to the ground.
Yes. And often people view prostrating as a mindless, fear-based ritual, like submitting to a dictator. But in system theory, as Ahmed outlines, sajda is simply input acceptance.
Oh, I love that. So you're stripping the subservience out of the word prostration and treating it purely as data acceptance.
Yes.
That changes the entire tone of the theology, because then arrogance isn't just having a bad attitude, it's literally input rejection.
You are refusing to read verified data.
Right. Prostrating isn't about being humiliated or defeated, it's the ultimate aha moment. It's like a mathematician who has been working on this massive, complex blackboard equation for decades. And they finally step back, they see the unified theory of everything, and they just drop to their knees because the equation is so flawlessly perfect.
That's it, exactly. They can't help but yield to the reality of it, yielding to the perfection of the physical and moral laws.
Because it just makes absolute sense.
Right. When the human node recognizes that the chain is unbroken, that their biology, the cosmos, and the moral law are all outputs of the exact same absolute souls. Source, the thinking center, logically falls into alignment. The Alif-Lam-Mim header is what Ahmed calls the alphabet of conviction.
The alphabet of conviction. Man, that is powerful.
It really is. The text is essentially issuing a laboratory challenge to you, the listener. It says, look, you have the basic raw materials. You have the simplest Arabic letters, Alif, Lam, Mim. Can you assemble a system with this level of historical, geopolitical, thermodynamic, and biological consistency?
It's challenging the reader to try and build a better operating system.
Exactly. And it asks, how are you auditing the data packets, the signals, and the friction in your own daily life? Are you checking your headers?
Are you connecting to the right server through a secure transmission to produce a stable manifestation?
It demands that you actually engage your reason to cross-check the claims of the text against the empirical friction of the real world.
So what does this all mean for us? We started today with a cold case. 3 disconnected letters that seemed like an unsolvable mystical puzzle.
Just letters on a page.
Right. And what we found is a master code, a verification circuit that runs through the foundation of society, the legacy of history, the metallurgy of the human soul, the rise of empires, and the biology of the brain itself.
It connects everything.
Which leaves me with one final lingering thought for you to take away. If these 3 ancient letters act as a master system header for universal laws, seamlessly connecting the birth of human biology to the rise of empires, what other hidden codes are sitting in plain sight right now just waiting for us to develop the right processor to decode them?
No doubt.